All right, welcome back. Welcome up.
No.
Hello.
Hi, hello.
How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
Okay. Okay. It's been a cold day.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's winter's back.
indeed, indeed. Susan, hello. Susan, have you been here other times? I'm trying to. I mean, it's hard for me to keep track of everybody.
Once
Yes,
before.
yes, I was here once before, not last class, but the one before.
Glad to have you. Sorry for my poor memory.
That's okay, thanks.
Okay, all right. Welcome everybody, and so we're going to go back into Psalm 31. I'm not sure if I remember exactly where we were last time, so I'll just maybe double back a little bit. I'm going to very briefly, once I get the psalm up, maybe I'll just read through the first half real quick in English so that we can kind of get the context back. So let me get started there. All right. Okay. Let's see. All right. I'll set this up just a little more, do this and what have you. Let's see if I can. Okay. All right. So, again, I'll go through the first bit, at least the first bit that I think that we covered. For the leader, a psalm of David, I seek refuge in you, O eternal one. May I never be disappointed. Again, I think we talked a lot about that. That's not the greatest translation, but may I not be embarrassed, more like. As you are righteous, rescue me. Incline your ear to me. Be quick to save me. Be a rock, a stronghold for me, a citadel for my deliverance. For you are my rock and my fortress. You lead me and guide me as befits your name. Once again, talking about the rock imagery. For you, you free me from the net laid for me. For you are my stronghold. Into your hand I entrust my spirit. You redeem me, O eternal one, faithful God. I detest those who rely on empty folly, but I trust in God. Let me exult and rejoice in your faithfulness when you notice my affliction, are mindful of my deep distress, and don't hand me over to my enemy, but grant me relief. Have mercy on me, O eternal one, for I am in distress. My eyes are wasted by vexation, my substance and body too. My life is spent in sorrow, my years in groaning, my strength fails because of my iniquity. My limbs waste away. Other than that, life's great.
Yeah.
Um, right? Um, I think that's pretty much where we left off. I mean, and maybe I'm off by a verse or two, but it never hurts to kind of double back. So for this, we are going back to the trope that we go back to from time to time, um, that of my enemies. My enemies are out to get me. My enemies are uh, circling around me. Help, save me from my enemies. Um, we, of course, all know people for whom that is a very real thing that they deal with. They deal with people who are not to be trusted, who have very unfortunate things that they wish to do to us. Um, and we also know people for whom such fears are that of more paranoia than anything else. It's pretty rare that we have a circumstance. I think we do have a circumstance not too long ago that we described in one of the earlier Psalms in which somebody acknowledged the possibility that they may have had a hand in their negative fate. Again, it doesn't happen all that often, but we're getting this straight from the mouth of the narrator. How reliable is that narrator? We'll never really know. But every once in a while, we get at least small indications. So what we're going to do at this point is to kind of look a little bit at what exactly these enemies, like, what are they doing, and how bad is this? Um, so in the spirit of maybe reading a little bit aloud, let's see. Actually, Susan, would you do would you do the like verses 12 and 13 that's in front of us?
Yeah, sure. Because of all my foes, I am the particular butt of my neighbors, a horror to my friends. Those who see me on the street avoid me. I am put out of mind like the dead. I am like an object given up for lost.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's very vivid here, and especially like, eh, it's uh, I do find the translation here of I mean, this I would say is a very modern translation to say that, I'm the particular butt of my neighbors, and I'm not trying to make a crass joke or anything like that, but the idea of being, but more to the idea of, to be the butt of somebody's jokes. That's I would think is a relatively modern uh, expression. So that's essentially what is there. The alter translation um, is, obviously a little more formal, but it's not too far away from it. It's for all my enemies, have become a disgrace just as much to my neighbors and fear to my friends. Those who see me outside draw back from me. Um, uh, the part about like those who see me on the street, I don't think there's any word here that really means on the street. Bahutz literally means outside.
Outside.
Yeah, those who see me outside avoid me. But so again, we're using some, we're being a little liberal with the modern colloquialisms, but that's essentially what we say. Those, it's like, hey, I'm walking the streets or whatever it is. Like, do you have to be literally on a street to say that? All right, not maybe not literally. So those who see me in public, really, um, is or as I grew to know from living in the South, those who see me in Publix. Um, you know, I the first Shabbat I spent in South Carolina, I remember going to the first Shabbat in which I lived in South Carolina. I went to Publix on a Friday afternoon to get stuff for Shabbat, and there were, congregants. Oh, you're the new rabbi, et cetera, et cetera. And so somebody said to me, "Oh yeah, if you go to Publix, that's where people see you." I said, "Well, that's why they call it Publix, right? It just makes sense." Anyway, but that's the idea, right? Those who see me, whether it's literally on the street or just out and about, or in the Canadian translation, out and about. That's where that people just they not to do me many. The Hebrew is like they wander away from me. Alter's comment here um, uh, is the whole line, culminating in this concrete image, is reminiscent of the book of Job. The speaker's distress is gravely compounded by the fact that those who know him treat him as a pariah. So, in other words, it's not just that this person's enemies are, trying to get away from the narrator. even friends and acquaintances are like, yeah, hi, bye. They're trying to avoid a little bit. So it's and I don't have to tell you. I mean, that's not a great place to be. Um, Now, regarding this 13th one, um, the 13th verse, right? I am put out of mind like the dead. I am like an object given up for lost. Um, the altar translation is pretty similar. It's forgotten from the heart like the dead, I become like a vessel lost. He comments, in the midst of many stock phrases, a concreteness of somber existential reflection manifests itself. It is a cruel fact of life that the dead and buried, however much lip service is paid them, are often forgotten, no longer part of the continuing considerations of our lives, like some lost possession for which we no longer even look. It's a harsh thought, there's no question, but one that is, not without some grains of truth to it. Um, and uh, it does bring to mind a sad yet I think true expression that some particularly lonely people feel, which is that they sometimes feel loneliest when they are in a crowd. Um, that that sometimes it's easier to be by oneself than to be among a bunch of people who are not paying attention to you. Um, I don't mean to make the start of this so incredibly somber, but uh, I think I mentioned this just I think to sort of illuminate this idea, to try to illuminate this idea that this utter loneliness of sort of kind of just being anonymous in among a bunch of people. Um, I remember, and I don't know why I remember this, but I remember um 1992. I'm watching the news. This is the summer of 1992. This was when Bill Clinton was the first time he was nominated by the Democratic Party to run for president. And they show, his acceptance speech, etc. And then they show on camera for a brief moment Michael Dukakis. Michael Dukakis, 4 years before, that was in Bill Clinton's spot. He was the Democratic nominee for president. And here he was 4 years later, having lost the 1988 election. At this point now, the former governor of Massachusetts. And there he is, simply a delegate, just in the crowd, just waving a flag, just kind of, and smiling and being a good sport about it all, at least from all appearances. But it's like, yeah, 4 years ago, this was the guy. This was the guy who could have been the president of the United States, that if things had broken differently, he'd be up there running for reelection. And how quickly our fortunes tend to turn. Um, I obviously don't know what Dukakis was feeling at that moment, but the way that the news was framing it, it was like, oh my gosh, what a despairing place to be. I do hope that he was able to transcend that moment. But yeah, it is sometimes, loneliness. It is hard to feel. It is hard to feel, especially when we are surrounded in one sense or another.
Um,
And yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to sort of make sense of this Milev there. It was I was forgotten, like dead. Haiti, I was. Milev, from the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. So, keeping in mind the biblical Hebrew, that the
It's very,
ordering,
very, I mean, the whole thing is very, I mean, it's a poem and it's very telegraphic. Uh,
yeah, yeah. No, it not only is it a poem, but I mean, biblical Hebrew especially, the order in which the words are do not correspond to the way that we typically order words in sentences in English. So if you're being really like if you're trying to be like really literal with the English here, um, I have been forgotten as the dead from the heart. That would
I,
be, and so it's like, all right, so you kind of have to unscramble the words a little bit in order for it to kind of, to make some level of sense. Um, so, uh, and it's not that, and I'm not trying to say that the Hebrew is, um, that the Hebrew is out of order. It was in order, just the way that the language is structured. It's just
yeah,
not
no,
necessarily.
I mean, the
I,
question is mainly sort of what does this Milev
Oh, okay.
convey? Because, I mean, what they translate there, could as well be just Nishtachti Kemet Haiti.
yeah, like being out of being out of mind, like out of sight, out of mind, we say, and but it seems to imply something even deeper. It's not just from
Right.
the memory, but from one's um one's very being, like, the disgust is so great that uh, it's not, they're not only out of our mind, but they are actually out of our very, very inside, very, like being is the word I think I would use. So the
Ilya,
heart.
so you sort of see this be a sort of a reinforcement, much a stronger thing than just forgotten.
Also, I would say that what we tend and what we tend to say that I thought about this in my mind, right? When we attribute like the powers that we attribute in our day and age to the mind, in the ancient world, the heart, it was like the heart was essentially the same as the mind in terms of like um so like when we say today like that we say to ourselves like, oh, I said this to myself, or I said this in my mind. In the Bible it was he said in his heart,
Mhm.
you know um so we're actually going to have an example of that. There's one part in chapter 6 of the book of Esther, which we're going to be reading, literally a week from tonight. There's a part in chapter 6 where, Haman Amar Bilibo, that Haman thought in his heart, literally, but what it really means is he thought he said this to himself. He said in his mind. The really fun thing that we would do when we would read the story of the Megillah at the seminary is the um, one of the deans of the rabbinical school was a rabbi named Rabbi William Libo, and everybody called him Bill. So so it's like, Haman Amar Billy Bo, and when we said Billy Bo, everybody's like they stopped the reading and they would look at Rabbi Lebo who was sitting there, and it's like, Bill Lebo, everyone, Bill Lebo. And he would, you'd stand up and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. It was fun. Uh, but it's true. Yeah. So Marcus, hopefully answering what you were looking for, that really it's like saying, like to say to be put out of your mind in the Hebrew, it was like to be put out of your heart. Like that,
It
like it
seems
was,
like
it was a
though
sin.
today we still keep the heart part because we're like we just passed Valentine's, but the heart seems to be a place for emotions, but the mind seems to be, for thinking, and it's your brain. But we still can kind of consider your heart for the emotional center.
Right, we do. And so, I mean, I think, my sense is that in the ancient world, that the heart was sort of like a catch-all for all thoughts, whereas now, the sort of the in modern parlance, the brain is more the intellectual center, the heart being the more emotional center. So, yeah. All right, well, good. Let's see. Um, let's go to 14, 15, 16. Linda, would you like to read that for us? 14, 15, 16?
I hear the whisperings of many, intrigue on every side, as they scheme together against me, plotting to take my life. But I trusted you, O Eternal One. I say you are my God. My fate is in your hand. Save me from the hand of my enemies and pursuers.
Fantastic. Okay. So this kind of sort of sums up what this narrator has been leading up to, right? That um, I'm isolated, right? And now we're back to the enemies, right? That there is this there is where it says intrigue on every side. Now let's take a look at what that is. Yeah, and that other would translate it as terror. That's actually how Alter translates it. That it's that it's Kishamati di bat rabim magor misaviv. Yeah, I think I think magor is thought to be terror. I don't know why they decided to make it why they suggested intrigue as the main translation, but okay. Um, so in other words, this is as close as it gets to saying the bad guys are out to get me. But what is what's allowing the narrator to get through? The trust that this narrator has in God. Um, and then we have biyadcha itotai. Um, it's a curious expression in verse 16 where it says, "My fate is in your hand." Um, Again, Alter always having a more literal translation, really translates that second word in Hebrew in verse 16, itotai, much more literally. Eight, ayin tav, the first two letters of itotai in verse 16, is a word that means time. So what, so instead of saying my fate is in your hand, Alter translates it as my times are in your hand. So what does it mean? My times are in your hand. Does it mean that, all right, I got my delivery of today's New York Times and you decided to take it from me. And so why are my times in your hand? That's not what it actually means. What it actually means is that, but I mean, and this is where I think having the colloquial expression really does help. That, my time is in your hands, meaning, yeah, my fate is in your hand. Like, in other words, my time, you could say in another way, I fear that my time is running out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My life is in your hands, even, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. It's and we've had already earlier in the psalm, biyadcha afkid ruchi, the in your hand I place my spirit, and we also have an expression in maybe a more modern expression, where somebody says to someone who is desperate to win the affection of someone else, my heart is in your hands, right? And if you are familiar with the late satirist Tom Lehrer, who wrote in one of his satiristic songs, um, uh, at your command, before you, here I stand. My heart is in your hand. Yuck. Um, but because I guess he meant it in a literal way, which is, um, but in all seriousness, that's the idea, right? That's um, uh, like I'm reaching out to you, I'm trusting you, but like I'm letting go in the hopes and expectations that you will consider my plea. And I'm going to um, allow, I guess, nature to take its course and hope that I've done enough to warrant your mercy, your clemency, whatever it might be. Um, so, all right, so moving a little forward on that. Let's see. Gilead, could you do 17, 18, 19?
Sure. Show favor to your servant, as you are faithful, deliver me. O Eternal One, let me not be disappointed when I call you. Let the wicked be disappointed. Let them be silenced in Sheol. Let lying lips be stilled that speak haughtily against the righteous with arrogance and contempt.
Okay. Um, I don't know if I don't have too much to say on this. Again, uh, again we have this. I think what we said about this psalm is that this does go in a little bit into cliches, not to minimize the emotion behind it, but we kind of get to some of the same expressions we've heard other places, and we have specifically in verse 18, a this phrase Adonai al avosha kikraticha, let me not be well, the translation here is be disappointed. Again, it's more like let me not be ashamed or embarrassed, when I call you. Um, the comment here on verse 19, um, let lying lips be stilled. Alter comments, these words nicely pick up in be stilled in Sheol, right? Um, of the preceding verse, and clearly imply that the silencing of the lying lips is to be effected through death. The general distress of the speaker appears to be that he has been the victim of malicious slander, or perhaps even perjury. Um, you know, um, you can also have like you also have the Sifte Shakar Hadovrot. Um, I mean, in verse 19, the word Dovrot, uh, oftentimes you have that with, more, said more, with Devarim, Devarim meaning words or things. So, and like a Devar Torah meaning a word of Torah. These are instead words that are used for hurt and for causing pain for others. Um, Sifte shaker is the phrase that means the lying lips, which I think perhaps was not meant based on the alliteration in English, but that alliteration I think is effective certainly for our understanding here. The idea of when we say about certain people that everything out of their mouth appears to be a lie. That they have lying lips. I think that's a memorable image, at least of that.
What do you think of the attitude of this narrator? I don't care for his attitude very much.
So tell me why.
Because he or she is not particularly convinced that God is going to help him and to save him. Because our eternal one, let me not be disappointed, or as you say, ashamed, but that's ashamed because of what God might be doing. And not what he is doing. So I don't like his attitude. He is haughty. In his attitude. I don't care for him. It's not sincere. And
yeah, it's
he's whining, right? He's
yeah,
terribly whining. So
yeah, and don't to quote, look, and a lot of you know that I'm a big fan of the Beatles. One of my I would say my least favorite, or I think perhaps one of the more overrated Beatles songs is which this is an opinion not a lot of people hold. I feel like I'm in the minority on this. I'm not a big fan of the song "Don't Let Me Down." Just not a big fan of it. And look, if you love that song, all good, that's great. But I can't help but hear John Lennon going, "Don't let me down," well, and I guess to your point, Gilia, who is this person to look at God saying, "Don't disappoint me"?
right.
You know,
It's not a contrite person.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think a more contrite position might be, I hope I'm sorry if I disappointed you.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah.
I don't mean I wish I didn't disappoint you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I looked up soul, or however you pronounce that thing. And I'm not bragging, my vocabulary, even though I don't use it, is pretty good. And I never heard of that word. And it was looking pretty much everything was saying it's Hebrew for hell or
yeah.
Hades or something like.
Yeah.
Is this even a translation, or is that just English spelling of the word that's in Hebrew?
So Sheol is considered, I mean, Sheol would be what we would call like a proper noun. It is the name of a specific place. And that place is, as you indicated, Will, a thought to be an underworld. As always, it is, I think, important to note that a that that ideas that we have in our modern culture, which of course is in many ways heavily influenced by um, ideas from Christianity, the idea of you know when somebody in Western culture hears the word hell, they often go to Christian ideas of, a place where there's fire and burning and torture and, the nefarious figure with horns and a pitchfork and all these sorts of things. Those are mainly Christian ideas, whereas Jewish ideas having to do with an underworld is a lot closer to that of the Greek underworld, which is known as Hades, which is don't get me wrong, it's not meant to be sweetness and light, but it's mainly a dark place where you sleep. Um, not a again, not a pleasant and gorgeous place, but also not the worst possible of fates. So Sheol refers to the closest thing we have in the Hebrew Bible to some sort of afterworld. But it's important not to think of it as necessarily a place of utter agony. Um, so, so yeah.
So does that mean the word is not translated? That's the same as it would be in Hebrew?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that is what it said, like, Sheol. So it is a direct, yeah, it's a one for one.
Yeah, it's the last word. Will, it's the last word in this verse in Hebrew. The Shin Alev Vav Lamed.
Yeah. Yeah. Sheol, not to be confused with the 1988 Summer Olympics, which was in Seoul, South Korea, not Sheol, South Korea, different place. Okay. But no, fair question, and yeah, absolutely. Um, uh, Richard, could you read for us 20 and 21, please?
Sure. How abundant is the good that you have in store for those who fear you, that you do in full view for those who take refuge in you. You grant them the protection of your presence against the opposition's schemes. You shelter them in your pavilion from contentious tongues.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, it's so now we have a little bit of you have a turn, a little bit, at least more of a little more positive of a thought that um hey, in other words, if I have done right by you, God, which Gilead, as you noted, this person feels pretty confident that he has. If I've done right by you, then look, I've got a lot to look forward to. Um, and you get protection, right? And you get shelter from from the bad stuff. Um, there is something about verse 21 that is a little bit interesting. So it's the end of that first line in the Hebrew on 21, where it says, uh, "May ruch say," or the whole phrase being "May ruch say ish," which is translated here as the opposition schemes. If you look at the footnote here, uh, the other thing they offer is against human schemes. Human, they get that from the word ish, which means man. Um, Alter translates this as the crookedness of man, and comments that this Hebrew meruch ish is problematic. The noun meruchse, meruchse, means mountaintop, and so might more generally suggest an uneven surface or an obstacle. But all interpretations lean heavily on context, assuming an explicit interlinear parallelism with the quarrel of tongues, another reference to slander. So it's so to the against the opposition schemes, it might be, so again, like it may be like an obstacle, a hurdle, right? A something that is a barrier that people who are set against us, a barrier that they have set up in order to make us trip and fall, something along those lines. So here is this person trying to maybe reassure him or herself, saying, well, assuming I'm right, which he probably thinks he is, right? Assuming I'm right, then we are, then I've got some, then there's some better stuff that is to follow. And so with that, I mean, again, this is, I would say, one of the more disjointed Psalms we're going to read, because it really does vacillate back and forth between statements of fear and horror of what may be, with confidence, and in between are is maybe not so much confidence, but kind of this preening hope upon hope that they'll be listened to. It really is kind of all over the place, not necessarily unusual. And to kind of add to this, you have this interesting expression here in verse 22. So, Marcus, could you read 22, 23, 24, please?
Okay, yes. Blessed is God who has been wondrously faithful to me, a veritable bastion. Alarmed I had thought, I am thrust out of your sight. Yet you listened to my plea for mercy when I cried out to you. So love God, all you faithful. God guards the loyal, and more than requites the one who acts arrogantly.
All right, very good. So, okay, for verse 22, this phrase here, a veritable bastion. When's the last time you used veritable in a sentence? Sometimes I have to be reminded to eat my veritables. But people don't usually talk like that, really. And again, Alter offers something a little more literal, which is a town under siege, Be'ir Matzor. And he notes this abrupt image is metaphorical rather than historical, linking with the military figures early in the poem. So, in other words, if you're sitting here going, oh, where exactly is this town? Where exactly is this city that's under siege? Does this refer to an event in David's life? Does this refer to an event in anything in biblical history? And Alter seems to claim, no, it's really kind of a catch-all. It's kind of a symbolic, symbolic idea of
Could also mean that it's that God is my rock.
Oh, like Sur.
Yeah.
Interesting. Certainly. So, in other words, what you're saying is that like that last word in verse 22, matzor, that if you just change the vowel in there, you got matzor. Which
and
by the
he is built out of rocks, right?
Right. There's this idea of God as rock, as a rock indeed. And which is, by the way, that is a classical rabbinic flex, if you will. That is a classic way that the rabbis will say, will seek and teach meaning in a phrase that they might otherwise be puzzled in, where they'll just say, well, let's look at this word. If you just change a vowel, or if you just change a letter, you slightly change you slightly change it so that you can um, you slightly alter it a little bit so that you have a whole new meaning from it. And so that is certainly a possibility there. So I once
Isn't that
did
a
this.
more normal? It seemed like to me a more normal, common way to describe God than a parable bastion. I was thinking, what do you do? How's you describing God as an object? And Gilder reminded me of that's real common. That just seems like it's a real strange way to describe God.
Yeah, or certainly a very overly formal way to describe God at the very
Yeah,
least, which
it's filled it.
yeah, just kind of not the most accessible way. Um, you know, uh, I actually did this once when I was giving one time a rabbi in our community, an Orthodox rabbi in the community that I served, was moving from there to New Jersey. And I decided to, and the idea is that the other rabbis were supposed to make little tributes to him and things like that. So I got up and I said, okay, now listen, I've lived in New Jersey before. I need to make sure you know what you're getting into. And one of the things that I noted was like somebody that there had been a contest for that the state of New Jersey actually held a contest soliciting opinions of what their state slogan should be. And there were all these, of course, these kind of sarcastic, somewhat insulting insults that they came up with. And the one that I focused on was somebody suggested that the slogan should be New Jersey, a great place to be from. And then, but so I said, well, no, but here's the thing. If you change one letter in the word from, you get from.
Yeah.
And from is a I guess it's a Yiddish, right, expression that
Yeah.
means very like a very piously religious Jew. So I turned that a great place to be from to say, oh, but no, you're going to a great place to be from. You're going to a great place to be able to continue to live and live the Judaism that you love so much, et cetera, et cetera. So I turned it into that. But the Talmud is, the Talmud is filled with examples like this where it's like, don't read it as this, read it slightly differently, and you get an all new meaning. So yeah, it could be that we're going back to the imagery of God as a rock.
As someone who grew up in New Jersey, I can't.
Okay, yes, and
I'm
please
a
understand.
Jersey girl.
And listen. I like I said, I lived in New Jersey I lived there for 6 years. I didn't. I enjoyed it there. There was a lot of good stuff there. Um,
But I mean that's certainly sort of the type of etymology that is very nice to make a drush of, but um, probably linguistically doesn't make too much sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, look, there's a lot of, Marcus, I mean, you're probably, I mean,
I mean,
I agree with you, like, you're
that
right.
doesn't mean that's a bad way to try to make sense of it, but
No, of course, of course. And look, the prophets, especially, were very fond of wordplay. Were very fond of doing alliteration and, frankly, a lot of puns. None as cringe-inducing as the ones that I subject you guys to, but still plenty of puns. And so yeah, so I think yeah, it is sewer probably I would say sewers probably isn't the actual translation, but as a way to read it, yeah, maybe they kind of were hinting at it. I think that is plausible.
I mean, looking at the dictionaries and Safaria, basically it says for Metzur is entrenchment, siege enclosure, sort of fortification. So basically, Metzor probably means sort of a fortified city.
That's what mine says, an entrenched city.
Yeah. So I mean, and and that imagery, like that God has been wondrously faithful to me, and if you want to say an entrenched city, in other words, like
But I mean, it is sort of the
yeah.
fortified, so it probably is related ultimately to Zur rock. So an Ir Zur would be a city
Right.
of rock. So
Yeah, God is referred to, and maybe we've already had this in one of our earlier Psalms. I'm not remembering at the moment, but God being described as a sheltering rock, which is, by the way, a name of a synagogue in Long Island, because there's a town in Long Island known as Shelter Rock. And there is a synagogue there known as Shelter Rock Jewish Center. And I think, I mean, I'm sure that it's, that that they'll, that they enjoy. I would imagine that synagogue enjoys being able to use that not only as a point of civic pride, but also to use the Judaic meaning of sheltering rock as well in what they do with the synagogue.
I mean, however, I mean, what we read there, I think it sort of is a solid place and a safe haven. It seems to be sort of the whole um, uh, um, feeling that the author tries to convey, that God is his, basically shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I'm gonna just I'll take the liberty real quick with what we have here. We have one more verse. I'll just read it real quick. Um, Be strong and of good courage, all you who wait for God, which might kind of feel like kind of a throwaway line here, but it is important that this phrase "chizku v'ya'ametz," "chazak v'yametz."
Mm-hmm.
We have that phrase in numerous places. Certainly, numerous times in reference to Joshua, and in the book of Joshua and other, to be strong and take courage. Um, it's a in terms of um, like a sort of a charge to the people. It's one of the phrases we like to go back to.
Right. And it's a Zionist watchword too, from
Yeah,
Yishuv period.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So I do kind of feel that this is not necessarily a throwaway line, but at least a line of, I mean, I think more just like something that it just sort of feels, it just kind of, you could probably have ended this by saying "Amen," and probably would have had the same basic, or ended it by, by saying "Yeehaw!" All right, yeah, or something like that. It doesn't really add too much, but it is
On,
kind of a nice parting thought, I guess.
on the other hand, if he would take his own advice, he wouldn't have been whining the whole time he wrote this thing.
So would you say, okay, so would it be better to say, and by the way, no, and totally, totally valid way of looking at it. Would you think of this more as the reader, or as the narrator being whiny, or more just not very self-aware?
Good question.
And I certainly ask without having an answer in mind. I mean, I really don't know what the really what the answer really would be. I mean, I think it's more, it's something always important to ask because, almost always this is told from we imagine that this is told from an individual's point of view.
Mhm.
And to what extent are said individuals reliable narrators? It can be, and which I think is an intriguing exercise whenever we read, frankly, any story, fiction or nonfiction. What um, do the people who tell the story, are they trying to drive home a certain point? Um, in some cases, a self-serving point. Sometimes maybe more of a self-flagellating point where they're trying to say, "Oh my gosh, well, how terrible have I been," or whatever it is. Is there an agenda, or is the person, able to just, kind of give a very dispassionate description of whatever they wish to talk about? Um, it's I think these are often very good questions to ask, and questions that in many times don't necessarily have an easy answer. But I think it's intriguing to consider the possibilities. When we meet again 2 weeks from tonight, we will tackle Psalm 32 as we march on in our exploration of the Psalms. That will be 2 weeks from tonight on March 9th. 1 week from tonight, as I mentioned, we will be chanting the Megillah at Heska Amuna Synagogue, 7 p.m. Love to have you in person. Happy to have you on Zoom if you can't make it in person, though I will say, if you are on Zoom, we will not be able to hear you, Boo Heyman. The rest
Is
of us
it
will not.
7 p.m.?
7 p.m. Yes, there is a kids program prior to that.
Oh, the kids is at 5. Okay.
Yeah, that's at 5, and then we have some kind of like some fun some fun food and things like that. So you're welcome to come and have a little bit of food beforehand. But the formal Megillah reading begins Monday night 7
But
p.m.
it's like a
So,
family
so if you want to
Megillah
have
reading.
the whole Megillah, you'll have to come at 5. Yeah.
Right, to get the whole Megillah.
Whole Megillah.
Yeah,
But it's more like a family thing, I'm thinking.
Right. So what's at 5 o'clock is going to be like sort of like a family, an abridged one, but one where we can,
I mean, the whole
enjoy the
night
kids.
family, like the next morning will be more
Right. And then
family.
Tuesday morning, March 3rd at 9 a.m. We'll do the Megillah reading. We'll do it all over again. So probably not booing quite as loud and long. I feel like when you get to the morning Megillah reading, you're kind of like, all right, boo. All right. There's a little bit of that, but that's okay. That's okay.
That's a longer. Is that one longer? You said.
I would say, with the evening one, we tend to kind of take our time a little more just because like we haven't done it in a year. But, to do it again the next morning, it's fun to do it, but it's still kind of like, all right, boo, boo, like it's a little, it tends to be a little snappier, I guess.
Because I'm not sure if my son's going to be here, I know he's coming that week sometime, but if they're here, and that would be great, for Tall and the kids.
Well, come on. Happy to have them. All right, very good. Well, we'll see you in this for this class in 2 weeks. Oh, and for those who can, love to see you sooner if you're able.
Okay, yeah, so go up, Rabbi.
Take care. Be well.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.